Hi, everyone. I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Today is so exciting because today is the second season of my I Love Learning podcast. And the reason why I have my podcast is because I love sharing learning stories that are inspiring. And this season, you're really going to hear from people like last season who like to engage and inspire others who maybe have something, a hurdle or something that they're struggling with. And the people on my podcast some of them have really overcome the impossible themselves. And I consider these people who have minds of a champion. And what we really need to know from a neuroscience standpoint is that our mind really we can control and drive deeper connections and motivation and have more success. But really, the key I feel and believe, and we're going to learn this season, is that happiness is really in the drive. And Milena and I were just talking about the energy that you need to even begin to have this drive to be able to achieve this deeper happiness that we all seek and we all want to achieve. So I am so blessed today to start my second season with Milena Regos, who is the founder of the Unhustle philosophy. And really, I am so excited to have her talk about it today. She's a beautiful person inside and out. So if you don't know her, you're not connected with her, you should be. But I'm going to have her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her passion. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much, Gina. Congratulations on season 2. That is
Yay!
so exciting.
Thank
Yay.
you. I
Yay.
appreciate
Congrats.
that.
That's
Thank you.
awesome. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
you already said my name is Milena Regos. I'm the founder of Unhustle, and I'm on a mission to help people break free from that toxic grip of hustle culture and create lives with more balance, more joy, more meaning. So my journey, of course, began when I experienced creative burnout myself after years of chasing external success, chasing the American dream at the expense of my health and happiness. And that experience sparked something in me that I became very passionate about, not only figuring out a different way forward, but also helping others figure out a different way forward as to how they live and how they work. And now through Unhustle, I help busy professionals and burnout leaders and entrepreneurs reclaim their lives by creating whole life success, which is being able to achieve your bold business goals without sacrificing your health, happiness, and relationships. So that's what I do these days.
That is amazing. I think it's really interesting. I think I was reading a Harvard case study just a few weeks ago about burnout. And, it's not like a new concept, right? I mean, we've had this from probably the beginning of caveman times, going out and hunting and being burnt out. And I think about this, like most of us at some point in our life have felt burnt out. I was on a call this morning, Milena, with somebody that was telling me about how he lost his son's permission slip and he was at work and he was thinking about this and just overwhelming and how overwhelmed people are feeling today. So can you talk a little bit about like the hurdles that maybe you faced that maybe stood in the way of your passion, or maybe that actually helped led you to your passion? Because I've talked to at least several people this week that I think are feeling burnt out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there are external hurdles and there are internal hurdles. And what I found out when I found myself at crossroads in my career is that I was deeply embedded in the hustle culture myth of work long hours, always chase the next big thing. And I had a very successful career from the outside. I spent 23 years in marketing. I worked with clients like Madonna. But when I
That's awesome.
I was very passionate about what I was doing. But when I took a pause and I looked at my life and did an honest evaluation, which I call the 1 minute cocktail napkin life balance audit on an airplane, coming back from a trip, I realized that while work was overflowing and money was okay, the rest of the areas in my life were suffering, like health and relationships
Wow.
and play. And so I felt exhausted and disconnected from myself and my well-being. And the hurdle, I realized, was more internal than it was external.
Mm.
I personally felt stuck in a externally, I felt stuck in a system that equated my worth with productivity, and I knew it
Mm.
wasn't sustainable. But I also knew that a lot of that was an internal hurdle. So my health, my relationships, and my sense of self are things that I'm in control. And so the biggest roadblock was my own mindset. And
Mm.
in order to shift that, I had to change what I call, I had to change the station from radio me station, which led to a journey of mindfulness and looking into all kinds of different modalities
Got
and
it.
combining ancient wisdom with modern science and all of these things that are helpful in the fight against believing that hustling equals success.
Yeah, I like that. And, one of the things about my podcast I think is so critical to have perspective like yours on is this idea of you discovered that this was coming. The hurdle was actually inside of you. Like, it wasn't that, well, I don't know about Madonna, but it wasn't like somebody was pressing on you like a supervisor. It was your own self that was imposing these thoughts. So, yourself was the thing that was kind of holding you back. So, what was it, Milena? How did you overcome that? Like, how did you overcome yourself? Like, was there something specific that you remember that you drew up, or was like it just one day you woke up and said, self, stop it. Come on, let's get up. What did you do?
Well, it actually happened when I just about had to fight for my life, and not in a very
Oh, okay.
dramatic way, but it was,
Yeah.
I decided to learn to kiteboard. And
Wow.
and it was out there in the ocean when I had to fully focus on what I was doing, and I couldn't think
Mm,
about work anymore. And it just gave me that
wow.
chance to pause
Mm-hmm.
and to look around and to reconnect with myself and to reconnect with my soul and to ask myself a few questions like, am I doing what really makes me happy? Am
Mm,
I in alignment with my personal values? My personal values have always been for freedom, for creativity, for well-being, and I was kind of going against these values. So
mm.
I suffered from what people would call misalignment burnout, when what you're doing is not necessarily aligned with what you believe in. And finally, when I looked at all of these things, I realized that, yeah, I'm passionate about marketing, but it's not 100%
Mm.
what I'm designed to do in this world. And so I searched for a bigger purpose and a more resonant impact in shifting my career into something that would have more positive impact on humanity, as opposed to staying in marketing. It was
Got it.
not an
Yeah.
overnight transformation, I have to admit. And hustling takes time. You can
Mm.
start feeling better probably within 30 days, but it definitely takes 8 to 12 months. I'm going 10 years on this journey. And so
Right.
it's not an overnight thing.
I love that you said that, because the fact that you were kite surfing, which by the way, that's pretty incredible on its own self that you kite surf. But the fact is it wasn't like you were out there. It's just the fresh air, you breathing, being in sort of that meditative state kind of opened you up to this idea. But like you said, I'm writing a book as well. And I was writing a
Yay.
chapter, yay, on letting go.
Uh-huh.
And when you think about it, it's similar, where this is an ongoing journey. This isn't something that you get up and do. I've been doing that for 3 decades.
Uh-huh.
It's like you always, anytime a thought comes in about the strategy of letting that go, it's the same as this idea that you're talking about of the journey of becoming your true self. Because that's
Yeah.
really what you're talking about. And it's so beautiful that
Yeah,
you
but letting
found your
go
true
is
self.
very hard. Letting go is very hard, you know. I mean, that connection with your soul versus the ego, that whole ego to soul living is extremely hard, especially because we're primed so well by
Mm.
external factors, by marketers, like I used to be one of them, so I know how that works, by external influences, by mass media, by social media, by our peers, by anything we do in our life is constantly putting pressure on us, on our brains, on our bodies to just keep going, keep pressing, keep, Protestant work ethic, industrial era. I mean, all of these things have added so much conditioning that letting go of that, like you're saying,
Yeah.
it's a
What do you
process.
do to let go? I mean, I had this strategy that I propose in the book, but I'm curious, like when you if you get upset, for example, seeing something on social media, how do you let that go? What do you do? I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know. Is there something that, like, I think about? So people are going to laugh. So how I train my mind to let go, and I learned this when I was in my early 20s. I went through a very traumatic one-time event, and I was speaking to a counselor. And the thing is, like, they said, you need to visualize something, or you need to put yourself somewhere that brings good thoughts. And I imagined a red apple. I was a school teacher. So I imagined a red apple with a little green worm that smiled at me. I know this sounds weird, but anytime something came into my mind that was horrifying or bad, that made me stress, I started to picture this apple. I could get really good at it now. Like, I'd see the face of the worm looking at me, and I'm like very creative, so I would like talk to this worm in my mind. I'd say positive things. And again, this has been 30 years. Like, I don't even have to, like, I instantly can something go because I start down that thought process. But that's what I did. Is there something like that you do to let stuff go?
Yeah, well, you're catching me in a time where I really have to learn how to let go, and so
Okay.
today it's one of those days. And so
Hmm.
my go-to is meditation. And
Got it.
what I did today was, actually, I had to set an alarm, and I am very comfortable spending an hour meditating,
Mm.
and my
Mm.
body is kind of aware when the hour is up. So I actually 1 minute right before I looked up, but in that time, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to allow myself that space. But I also know that unless I change my energy and my
Mhm.
attitude, the rest of my
Mm.
day won't go well. And so I make it a priority. And whether it's, like you're saying, um, positive thinking about something, for me it's more about being curious and
Mm.
questioning, what does the universe have in store for me? That is, what lesson am I learning in the moment, and how is this new thing that I don't even know about going to be better suited for me than what
Uh-huh.
I'm currently attached to. Now, from a Buddhism perspective, obviously, we know that attachment leads to suffering, and so
Uh-huh.
today I had to sit with that thinking a little bit, and like, why am I so attached to this thing? Because by letting go, we liberate ourselves. And that's really the philosophy of Unhustle, is about liberating your life. And unless
Mm.
we can liberate our consciousness, we are not free. And so
Oh.
it was a beautiful long meditation. I feel so much better now.
Oh, I'm so glad. I love that. And this idea of like being purposeful, I think is an important takeaway from that. It's something that you have to choose to engage in to let it go. So I love that. What is it that keeps you happy? Like, what makes you wake up every day and be passionate about Unhustle? Is there something specific, or what makes you happy?
What makes me happy is kind of what I call life, work, play by design, but we can talk about that. But basically, the journey that I've taken on with Hustle, there's a lot of deep learning,
Mm.
and it's a lot of a personal journey. But at the same time, what really makes me happy is seeing the impact it has on others. And so
Oh.
when I see that resonant impact from other people, that whether
Mm.
they find more balance, or they find increased happiness, or they find a way to have more energy instead of that constant exhaustion that we're dealing with, that makes me
Mm.
happy. From a learning perspective, because I love learning is definitely one of my values. When
Yeah.
I'm looking at combining ancient wisdom, I'm looking at the modern science, and I love
Mhm.
to see where they intersect, and
Mhm.
where it makes so much sense and how we're really trying to overcomplicate things so much. And so I'm
Yeah.
trying to simplify that framework. That's kind of what my book is about. It's to simplify that framework into like 10 principles to say, this is based on 10 years of talking to people, personal experiments, science,
Mhm.
and ancient wisdom. And obviously, everybody's different. Everybody has to create their own manifesto.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I'm putting that together, and that makes me happy.
I love that. I cannot wait for you to publish your book. I'm going to be the
Thank
biggest
you.
fan. Yeah. Thank you so much for, first of all, for loving learning. Learning is life, learning is growth, and learning just keeps us moving forward. And I think it's beautiful that you said that that is one of your values. I have a bracelet that says learning is alive. I just feel it's the baseline of growth. And I think about, what if someone came to you and said, Milana, I'm interested in learning about unhustle, but um, I've lost my passion. Like
Mm.
I don't really know. Like I don't like to learn. I actually, oh my gosh, I was sitting at a table at a dinner the other night, and there was a gentleman at my table, and he said, I'm just don't want to learn anymore. He's still working, but he's like, I'm just unmotivated. I'm just lost my passion. And so I was trying to encourage him the value of doing something new. And what would you tell him, the gentleman that was sitting on my table, if he's listening to us right now? What would you say to him if he's lost his passion for living?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough question, and in my research, it really comes down to four things. It comes down
Mm,
to engagement with what you're doing. Passion can spark something, and passion can be very powerful, but passion may not sustain you in the long run. And so, what I discovered, the opposite of that, or the solution to a better way to look at it, is work fulfillment, or where do you get your fulfillment from? And in my opinion, it comes down to four things: engagement,
mm,
autonomy,
mm.
mastery, which kind of leans into growth and learning, and resonant impact. Like, where do you find meaning? How do you impacting other people? And so, acknowledging the fact that passion may be exhausted for you, but can you find a little bit of time and space to think of what little things you can engage with? Where's your curiosity?
Mm.
Not necessarily where's your passion, but what are things that may bring you a little bit of joy? And
Aw, I love that. Bring you a little bit of joy. I haven't heard like a position that way. Like it could be something as simple as the
ki-
moon,
the
right? Or
moon, or kite
yeah,
surfing for me, right? So
kite surfing. I'm scared of that. I'll be honest. Like I'm afraid of the shark. I mean, I'd have to overcome courage to go out kite surfing with you. I'd do it, but I might be a little scared.
I think it's really key, though, that we don't give ourselves a chance to have that space and take that break without feeling guilty, and
Mm,
we are not giving ourselves enough credit to say, maybe what I'm doing isn't exactly what I'm aligned with doing, and it's not too late for me to start something else. I could be still doing my marketing career, and maybe I'm passionate about it, but it wasn't bringing me the fulfillment that I really wanted long term. And
mm.
so some people say, well, I'm too old to shift careers. Well, I was just talking to somebody today, and she is a survivor from the mass shooting in Las Vegas, which happened
Oh,
7 years ago.
wow.
And
Mhm.
so her story is, she obviously was in a really bad place
Mhm.
after the mass shooting, and was completely broken. And so what she did in order to heal was go back to something that she had seen a couple of months prior to the shooting, and it had to do with working with metals, or just working with her hands. And
Wow.
that was able to rewire her brain. That flow state was able to remove the self. She was able to move on with life, and she's completely functioning, fully creative,
It's
happy person at the
beautiful.
moment. And she went through this really tragic experience, and she was in her 50s when it happened. And
Wow.
she told me today, I just wished I had stopped thinking of myself as a business owner for so many years, and allow the space and the grace to think of me as a creative person and do something with my hands.
I love that. That is an amazing story. I'm so happy that she was able to do that, because there's so many people that don't. And I think it's important, the point you put is that to provide yourself the grace, the forgiveness, and the space to explore those things. So that's awesome. This season of my podcast is all about winning. It's about thinking about this concept of winning and what that means. And so, what does winning look like to you?
Winning for me means living in alignment with my values, being in a place I love, surrounded by like-minded people, doing something that I love, having fun on a day-to-day basis, and having a meaningful impact on the world in one shape or another, which is what I call life, work, play by design. And I'm a firm believer that everybody can achieve that, that it does come down to engagement, to mastery, to resonant impact, and to having autonomy. And regardless of whether you work for somebody else or you work for yourself, there's some small tweaks, tiny little changes that you can do in order to create that success on your terms.
Well stated. I'm going to use that quote for our tip from our company next week. That was really impactful. So thank you for that. Milena, I have something new I'm doing this season, and you're going to kick it off. And I didn't provide this to you, but I'm thinking that I'd like you to create a question for my next guest next week. So think about that for a minute. If you think about a question that we can ask the guest next week based on my podcast theme this year, and then you can check in and see next week how the person responds. Do you have a good question?
Yeah, I love it. What's your podcast theme?
My podcast theme is about how we're winning to create a positive mindset.
Got it. Then ask him. I would like to ask the next guest, what does unhustling mean to them in the context of winning?
I like that. All right. You can maybe get a quote for your book. That would be outstanding. Lana, anything else you want to add or share to the audience today? Give us a final takeaway. Tell people where they can find you. Where can they connect with you? Where can they learn about your new book that's coming? Give us all the details.
Yeah, everything is on my website at unhustle.com. They can get some free resources, tools, tips, and see if there's anything I can help them with at unhustle.com. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me directly. I'd love for you, if you're listening, to tag me on social media at unhustle and let me know your biggest takeaway from the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today and kicking off this year on a positive note.